With its factory tuning and data center DNA, an Intel 730 series SSD is an amazing choice for gamers and performance enthusiasts. Alright, so this video might be coming at a bit of a strange time if the focus was going to be on this exact model of 4K monitor, which was first shown off way back at Computex 2013, and has been available pretty much since then at around $3,000 to $3,500, an early adopter price point if I've ever seen one. No, instead the focus of this video is going to be on my experience of using a 4K display, because this is the first time I've actually gotten the opportunity to try one in the comfort of my own home and at work. And now that 4K is finally coming down in price with ASUS's PQ321Q coming at around $800 for a 28-inch model, it is a very exciting time to take a look at this sexy technology. So first, I'll give a rundown of this one, this very gorgeous PQ321Q that I guess I can hold hostage now until ASUS sends one of the new ones. Unlike the low-cost variants that will feature TN panels of various quality, this monitor features an IGZO, or indium gallium zinc oxide-based panel. There's a great post, actually, by a complete stranger who goes by the handle of Glenwing on overclock.net, linked in the video description, that does a great job of explaining the benefits of this technology. But in short, because an IGZO panel's controlling transistors are smaller, respond more quickly, and can even be clear, we can get faster response times, higher pixel densities, and more power efficient or even transparent displays. For the rest of the specs, we'll move pretty fast here. This thing is a beast. It weighs 30 pounds, much of which is the robust stand. It consumes about as much power as an idling gaming desktop at about 80 to 90 watts, and it's got a 31.5-inch 3840 by 2160 LED edge-lit screen with one of the best anti-glare coatings that I've ever seen. It's actually, I think, the perfect balance between reducing reflections and still keeping colors vibrant looking, not scattering the light too much. The unit is super thin, 35 millimeters at the back, which contrasts sharply with the Dell 30-inch monitor that we use for high-res benchmarking, and this thinness is enabled by an external power brick versus having an internal power supply. I've seen other reviewers complain about this approach, but I disagree 100%. I would rather take up space on my floor with big power bricks than space on my desk, which I can actually use. It's not like I'll be moving this thing around. Speaking of movement, it has height adjust, pivot and tilt, but no portrait rotate mode. You can actually take the screws off and then put it in portrait mode permanently, but it's not something that you can just switch between easily. It has a side-mounted DisplayPort 1.2 connector with two side-mounted HDMI connectors. It should be noted that due to the way this monitor works, it's basically like two monitors side by side with no bezel in between. You will need to use either a DisplayPort device that supports multi-streams, that's 1.2 or higher, or two separate HDMI cables going into both ports if you want to run the monitor at 4K 60 Hz. With stronger DisplayPort implementations in HDMI 2 coming soon, this won't be an issue on future models, but it is something to bear in mind here. The monitor uses a sharp IGZO panel capable of producing 1.07 billion colors with a reasonable degree of accuracy, but with some tendency towards a warmer overall tone to the image. It should be noted that it was never really marketed as a ProArt series for serious color work, so it should still be good enough for most people. The buttons for controlling the on-screen display are around the back, and this is unusual, but they actually aren't even labeled on the front. They're only labeled on the back of the monitor. It's okay though, an optional sticker is included if you want to be able to see what you're doing, but given that the on-screen display doesn't have a ton of useful options like ASUS's ProArt series does, I would probably just leave the front label off for a super clean aesthetic if it was mine. Okay, back to that panel type again. I've mentioned this a few times. IGZO is not actually, strictly speaking, a panel type like IPS or TN. And apart from telling us that it's IGZO-based, ASUS hasn't been entirely forthright with what type of panel is in the PQ321Q. But on PCmonitors.info, they figure it's an IPS or similar display, which makes sense given the strong colors and outstanding viewing angles. If you want more details on the monitor, particularly with respect to color reproduction for professional work, or more nitty-gritty details of the spec, an Untected and excellent review of it, which I'll link in the video description. The rest of this video will focus on my experience using it and my thoughts on the upgrade to 4K. So I'll open with this. A bigger screen is not always a great upgrade. I used a 30-inch Samsung monitor as my daily driver for a couple of years, and while it was great, once I got used to it, Scaling back to 27, as I recently did, has actually been just fine too. But some people will always want bigger and better. So if you do want a huge display, then you need to consider pixel density. There was a period of time when many folks, particularly gamers, were buying 32-inch TVs with resolutions as low as 1366 by 768, and then lolling at me at LANs for paying so much for my 1920 by 1200 24-inch monitor, which was obviously much smaller. But that kind of solution was always very fatiguing for me to look at. If you increase the size, but not the pixel density, text and icon sizes are effectively blown up, making everything look blocky. If you increase both pixel density and size proportionally, you get effectively more of the same level of detail and same size text and icons. But when you ramp up resolution faster than size, you get a very different computing experience and everything starts to look much more crisp, or as Apple would call it, retina-y. At 140 pixels per inch, the PQ321Q is the highest density desktop monitor I've ever used by a significant margin, about 30% better than a 27-inch 1440p display, and it's incredible to see how sharp everything looks. The only challenge is that while ramping up resolution gives us more screen real estate to spread out our work, it also decreases the size of elements now to the point where it's hard to read text and click on things accurately, unless the solution to this, of course, is scaling, which is what smart OSs like Android and iOS do. But unfortunately, Windows doesn't handle scaling amazingly well, because even with improvements in Windows 8, which I unfortunately don't use yet, third-party software makers need to support it for it to work properly from within applications. What this means is that if I leave the scale at 100%, Windows Explorer text has the same sharpness as text in 7-zip or Steam. But if I scale to 150%, all of a sudden text in third-party applications can look terrible by comparison. It is not just isolated to these two applications. There are some other things that behave strangely at such enormous resolution as well. Remember that this is effectively 4 16-inch 1080p monitors side by side and stacked with no bezels between them. Websites designed for fixed width will just float in a sea of emptiness in the middle of your screen, and dynamic websites won't fare much better with elements stretched out to the edges of the screen or even just broken outright. One solution to that is to split your monitor into virtual smaller ones using third-party software, but that'll just take some tinkering for you to get things set up the way that you want it. It's just something to think about. Speaking of the way you want things, for all the complaining I've done about scaling and text and whatever else, the 4K experience, when you're doing it right, when you're enjoying native content, is absolutely unreal. It's one thing to see a 4K TV at a trade show. It's another thing entirely to have one 2 feet in front of your face playing all of your favorite games natively at 4K, because PC games support that stuff, as long as you have the graphics horsepower for it. It is a great time to be a PC gamer. Because of the improved pixel density, I find myself hardly even needing anti-aliasing anymore. In Dirt 3, I went from 0x to 2x to 4x, and then it got to the point where I had to have my nose like 6 inches from the screen to see any jaggies whatsoever. When you add to that the beautiful colors and respectable but not amazing processing lag on this monitor, the experience is unlike anything else. I've always found that surround would be okay for me, but the bezel just totally takes away from the immersion. Well, this, it's there in your field of view and it looks amazing. I mean, I think the craziest and most exciting thing about it is that while I found over 30 inches to be a little bit big, this technology is coming soon to smaller display sizes, which means even higher pixel density and at lower prices. 4K might not matter much to me for my TV, but for my desktop computer, it makes a really big difference. It's like when I moved from 24-inch 1200p to 30-inch 1600p all over again. It's absolutely beautiful. The one thing I really need to see though, before I'd be willing to drop $800 to $1,000 on a really nice 4K monitor, is G-Sync support. I noticed this at NVIDIA's Montreal event when they had some 4K TV gaming demos running, but the larger the screen, the more noticeable giant tearing artifacts across it are to me. V-Sync is a solution, but it adds more lag to what I'm already expecting to be slower than average monitors in this first round of affordable 4K monitors, although I haven't tested any of them yet. So when ASUS delivers about $1,000 4K 60Hz G-Sync monitor, they will not be able to take my money fast enough. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, leave a comment if you have any comments. Duh. If you want to discuss this product, we have a link in the video description to the Linus Tech Tips forum. We also have a link for supporting us. If you felt the need to do that, you think our videos are great, we should keep making them, you can give us a monthly contribution. You can buy a t-shirt, or you can even do stuff as simple as changing your Amazon bookmark in your browser to one that has our affiliate code in it, so we get a little kickback every time you buy stuff. I think that pretty much wraps it up, guys. Thank you for watching, and as always, don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.